itself, and how do you define culture itself, and how is it significant, and why is it so important for us to really talk about culture? What are the things that needs to be considered? So first, we can maybe spend a few minutes talking about what culture is, and how does it get formed, and why is it important?
So I would say before talking about what culture is, I think we should first begin by why we should talk about culture.
Right.
I think the main idea here is that the specific lack of productivity or compromised productivity of the worker within a team, we think that that is part of a wider systemic issue within the team or within the organization. It is not it is not usually just a kind of a one-off particular failing of a specific worker or a group of people working in the team. So then we have to understand the particular complaint that the manager approaches us with as a symptom of of perhaps a wider issue. So we'll have to begin by asking, for example, what they have already done to address the problem. Is this a recurring problem of compromised productivity? Is it just happens every now and then occasionally? Do they see a pattern here over a period of time? What have they done to already address it? Uh, what uh, what do they think is working? What do they think is not working in the way they are handling this particular problem? What does for them good productivity looks like? And what are they doing to enable that? So the idea here is that um, to be able to articulate that will get us into all these kinds of human interactions and the way people are managed within an organization that contributes to the productivity or the lack of from the
No, it's
worker.
it's very interesting. As a customer, I've experienced, at many instances, that kind of gives me a glimpse of how the culture of the company is. Now, if I go to a restaurant, sometimes you just have a great experience at a restaurant where the waiters to the managers, everyone speak the right things at the right time, come in at the right time for us, and not keep kind of hovering around the table, make us uncomfortable, or just have that the sense which prevails, and which gives us as a customer a great experience. Maybe a restaurant, or when you're taking a flight, and your airlines, and the way they treat you, how they handle possible rescheduling of flights, and how they're customer centric in their approach, how they treat the customers, also kind of reflects how they're treating their people internally as well, especially in times of crisis. So, I mean, the reschedulings happen all the time. You can't do anything about that. But then, how do you consistently manage that, and how do you still hold on to your customers? Gives a glimpse of how people are being managed, and what is the thought leadership that has gone internally, and how are they managing people internally as well. So culture then
Absolutely.
becomes a language of consistency, becomes a language of repeated practice, and a habitual practice of some kind, and not just a one-off event.
So correct. So basically, what we are saying is that when an organization or a team approaches us with saying that there's a problem with the productivity of their team, they're saying something. So the our approach is not simply how can we make the worker more productive. In some sense, um, if an answer can be provided to that at all, I'm not sure how well that answer can actually function. We understand that problem, that complaint, that there's a problem with the productivity of this team as a kind of a misalignment, an asynchronicity between the goals of the organization, and the internal workings of the company. And so and that's how we want to understand that problem. Um, so the so by reflecting on by asking the managers to reflect on what they've already done, what kind of culture is already in place, we are asking them to talk about this very internal dynamic within their team, how intentionally they've created the dynamic, uh, what they think is happening right now that is actually promoting excellence, promoting good productivity, and therefore what needs to be done in order to address productivity issues, and what they've already done to do so, right? And in this sense,
So my
culture.
question there, Vinod, is how, if can we then willfully change the culture of the company? I remember I was working here with a company where they asked me to be to consult with their team because the existing healthcare, it's a healthcare company. They'd taken over a hospital, and there was a certain way of working for them before. And when the new company took over, one of the things that the management said was, we need to change the way they're working. And they've tried for 1.5 years and they just don't seem to listen. And we don't want to let them go because they're well trained. The nurses are well trained, the managers are well trained, but they're not aligning to the way we want them to work. So now uh, this is a kind of resistance of the older culture, the people not wanting to change from an older culture to an existing culture. And although there were so many initiatives taken of possibly kind of um, uh, dressing it up in a way that this could be more fruitful, more colorful, more better way of giving the experience. The constant challenge they would find is, the way we were working was just fine. So even people had great experience even then. Why should we change? So now, how is it that you can define the culture, and then uh, how does that align and make sense to someone who just joins the company? Is really the question. The challenge, though, like you said, the managers, when they're told to talk about certain questions, then they have to kind of make sense of the culture of the company and what it means possibly to the employees who are a part of this picture. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe, from the hiring process itself, it's important to kind of understand behaviors that align to the culture of the company, and then hire the right behaviors into the company, and then possibly skill them up in a way.
So I think that in some sense, if the question is, can culture be created intentionally?
Yeah.
The answer is both yes and no. Uh, I, I do think that culture can be created from ground up, and particularly those higher in the organization uh, contribute more to the creation of the culture of the organization. But no, I do not believe that any particular worker or a group of managers, or even even the CEO has any particular um, ownership of the culture. Uh, to put in other terms, even if people are not intentionally creating a particular sort of culture, culture is by default created through the dynamic of the organization.
Mm.
And the dynamic includes even those who are not managers, but lower down the hierarchy of the organization. Everyone contributes to the culture. Culture, in this sense, is a dynamic. It is an interrelational dynamic. It's a dynamic in the sense that it's constantly changing over time. It's never completely formed. It's a dynamic in the sense that no particular agent completely controls the what the culture is. It's the product of the way in which all of the different factors that make up the organization, individual personalities, the work ethic they individually bring, the kinds of financial or social factors that are contributing to the environment of the culture of the organization. All of these are helping determine what the culture is. So in the case that you of the healthcare organization that you mentioned, perhaps what's going on is that the way the culture has been set up over the months or over the years is already determining the way people are operating. Um, and so if they want to change the shape of the culture, they would have to rethink why it's operating the way they do and why they want to change it. So that's a case of that's an example where the old culture is resistant to the proposal to change the culture, because it's asking, in some sense, the old culture is asking, give an account. Why do you think this needs to be changed? Uh, and so in that sense, um, culture transcends the individual makers of culture. The people who created the culture might not even be there to oversee what the culture is. But it's the so we define therefore culture as a set of practices, as a set of day-to-day practices, habitual practices that govern the operation of the culture. By operation, we do not mean individual actions of the employees. Culture is manifested in the actions, but it is not reducible to action. Culture manifests different ideas and ideologies of the culture, but it's not reducible to ideas and ideologies. So we think about culture as a dynamic also between theory and practice, between ideas and action. Culture is the amalgam, is the way to bring in these different is the place where theory and practice synthesizes, uh, action and idea synthesize.
So it's very interesting. So culture is what is happening when you're possibly deciding what kind of culture you want in the company. So the way we are managing each other actually decides the culture of the company when we're actually talking about what kind of culture we want. So so it's like the what's happening behind the scenes and not
Yeah,
what is being displayed in front. Not
yeah,
the act itself, but the prep that is happening. The
absolutely.
yeah. So what's
I mean,
happening behind the scenes? Yeah.
to put in other terms, I don't think culture waits for anyone. Culture is always already in place, always already working. Or to put it in other terms, individual players within the organization always arrive too late to the issue of culture, but they can still contribute to the shaping of it, right?
Right.
So we can compare it to, let's say, the dynamic that is created within a family. Uh, when a couple have a new child, let's say, there is already a certain kind of practice that is already in place, that the child is born into. Even if the couple have not sat down and talked about how do we raise a child, what kind of how deeply intentional they are about this process or not, uh, there is already a default way in which they're already raising the child. Uh, the raising of the child is not paused until they have a conversation about how to raise a child, right? So in that sense, culture is that's what we mean by practices. Uh, the culture is the way in which life unfolds, right? And so it is, and so and that is not that unfolding is not waiting for anyone to have a particular conversation about it. Uh, so that's why we think it's important to reflect on how this has already been unfolding, how this dynamic is already unfolding, has unfolded in your team, uh, and 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 to ask the organization to reflect on whether they've noticed that this is in fact how it has unfolded in the past,
Right.
uh, and whether they have noticed this, and therefore whether they have been intentional about affirming the way this is unfolding, or resisting it, or changing it. um, and so what have they done with regard to that? So the
So,
it's our belief that the yeah
a couple of
one
things.
final point. It's our belief that the function of the manager is precisely this. The function of the managing unit is to understand this dynamic,
So
is to
that was my question. Who drives the culture? What I mean, who's responsible for maintaining the culture? It's a top down, bottom up. See, even if if any individual, a worker is joining a company, um, he's still carrying a certain way of working. He comes into a certain company, he comes with a culture of the way he works, the way he deals with people, the way he manages people in situations, all of that, and the way he manages himself. So around all of these situations. So when he comes into this new environment, the novelty effect encourages you to kind of change a little bit. But then 6 months down the lane, you either figure out how to kind of mend the existing culture, or how you have to adapt to the existing culture. In neither of the cases, I think the change has already been done. So now, if you, so for a company who owns this process of culture, so should there be a separate department itself, or is there, the top management's responsibility to kind of say that we have to kind of build a way of working, certain behaviors have to be exhibited, and uh, this reflects what we stand for. Behaviors, of course, reflect the values and the belief systems of the company and the people who have started the company. So would the behavior, what kind of behaviors are we looking at, how are we reinforcing it? Has this thought even happened? Is something that the companies have to.
so
Yeah.
so I think with regard to each agent within the organization, uh, culture renders each agent both a passive and an active agent. Passive in the sense that each agent is a receptor of the culture that's already prevailing. They're participators in it. Uh, they don't. That's what I meant earlier. That they don't own it. They don't completely define it from the ground up. Even the top executives in the company. Uh, so they might have financial power, but they don't have this kind of cultural cachet. Uh, but at the same time, each agent within the organization also is an active agent with regard to culture. They are not just the participators in the prevailing culture, but they're also in small ways
Contribute.
helping shape it, contributing to it.
Yeah.
Right, and not just the managers, even those at the those who are workers, and who are maybe at the lower end of the hierarchy. And I'll give you an example. So if the if it becomes trendy within an organization for one or two people to, for example, clock out during work and not do any work, and if there's a new employee who comes in, who sees that this is the kind of the culture of the company, and it's okay to do so, and it's even there is some kind of joy or fun in doing so, uh, the odds are that they might also start doing it. So in this case, the those lower down the hierarchy are actually defining, shaping what the future culture of the company would look like. uh, so so which is to say that each agent within the company is both a passive participator and active shaper. Uh, but depending on your role within the company, the distribution of that passive and active role might change. I think that the those higher up in the order, and the top executives and the managers have more of an active role in thinking about, uh, especially in thinking about what the uh, culture of the company uh, has been, trying to understand that how it is operating still today, uh, and therefore how in what direction they want to take the culture of the company. and their role is also to communicate this vision to the people that they're managing, so that they can recruit them in the shaping of the future shaping of the culture of the company. So there is a way in which this kind of passive, a combination of the passive and active role is distributed throughout the organization in different complex ways. But as I said, no one particularly owns the culture. The culture will in some sense transcend the life of particular workers within the company, the particular tenures of the workers within the company, and perhaps in some ways the company itself. Yeah, sometimes, for example, we you hear about whoever, Steve Jobs or other famous visionaries or whatnot. The way they manage the company transcends their lifespan within that company, and so culture and it could inspire future companies and so on. So culture in that sense lives on beyond a particular
Absolutely.
specific tenures of various workers within the company itself.